that time again. It's time for Diary of a Physicist Farmgal. My name is Deborah, and I'm coming to you from here on my family farm, where I like to do all the crafts. I knit, I crochet, I sew, I quilt, I make baskets, I make jewelry. I'm going to learn to tat. I'll try any craft once and twice if I like it. I am also a professor of physics and astronomy at a local university where I teach courses to physics majors and to general education people, and I work with students about science literacy and astrophysics research. I volunteer doing planetarium shows, and I'm very active for causes for underrepresented minorities in STEM, so which is science, technology, engineering, and math. And of course there's STEAM, which is science, technology, engineering, art, and math, which is also cool too. And last but not least, I am a farmer. I am a third-generation family farmer here on 170 acres in the foothills of the Arkansas Ozarks, where I raise grass-fed beef cattle, I raise horses, I have heritage poultry, I have show-quality rabbits, and I have a retirement herd of miniature horses, miniature donkeys, a miniature mule named Pumpkin who thinks she rules the roost, and now we have Princess Penny, the pot-bellied pig. And as you can tell from my sweet little co-host Willie, who's being uncharacteristically camera shy today, I am fur kid mom to 13 dogs, 7 indoor cats, and an undetermined number of outside cats. So if any of all of that sounds interesting to you, I encourage you to come along as we start episode number 48 of Diary of a Physicist Farmgal. Okay, if you're looking for me on social media, you can find my farm Facebook page is the same name as my YouTube channel name. It is Buckthorn Farms, and there I post information about my farm. I post farm-related shares and pictures of all my animals and just kind of what's going on the farm, and occasionally I'll write a piece and put up there. Also, I am Doc Firewoman on Instagram and on Ravelry. And I have been terrible about my show notes, and I'm waiting for the day when I am caught up on my grading where I can just sit down and catch up on all my show notes and everything. That will not be today. Maybe early next week, I'm hoping. But at any rate, if you've got questions about anything, you can contact me. And I'm also on Twitter, remember, but, you know, my political point of view is pretty clearly left-leaning, although I read a really good article today about I am not the radical left, I am the compassionate middle, about where the things that that I believe really have kind of been said to be radical, but I don't know that being kind to people should be considered to be radical. But anyway, if you don't like to talk about that kind of thing, that's your decision, so don't follow me on Twitter because that's where I tend to go to town about that stuff. Also, there is a Ravelry group for the podcast where you can find out about make-alongs and giveaways, and we have some of those going on. We're going to talk about, what do you see? Is there somebody out there? Or are you just looking? You just looking? Okay. Anyway, so you can find out on there. I do have a couple of giveaways that will be coming to close on October 1st, which is next week. I am giving away a pattern, the It's My Party and I'll Pie If I Want To shawl by Logan from Leon Alexander Yarns. We're going to start a knit-along for that on October the 15th. And then I am also giving away one of the Arne and Carlos Rainforest frog patterns, and Miss Mary, who is a good listener to this podcast and a good friend, is donating a copy of that pattern as well. All the proceeds go to Rainforest protection and rehabilitation, or restoration, I guess is the right word, as part of overcoming some of the pretty poor practices of the governments that are destroying the Amazon rainforest. But at any rate, those two giveaways will be coming to a close on October 1, and then I'll contact the winners through Ravelry. So just go, there's a writing prompt on there, or a question prompt on there that you can go look at. I do have some make-alongs currently running. The ones that are going right now all run through the end of the year. And the quarter is fixing to change on the amigurumi one. So let's talk about that first. Creature Feature, which is amigurumi make along. It's being co-hosted with a Crocheting Whovian podcast. Right now the quarter that we're in is wild and woolly. And I made my little sea otter, if you remember from last time, and I have a whip that is a wild and woolly whip. That on October 1st we will change over to magical and mythical beasts. So dragons, unicorns, Pegasus, kelpies, you know, you can find a way to make it work most generally. So that we'll be switching over to that October 1. So I will draw for pattern prizes for the quarter of wild and woolly on October 1, and I will contact those people through Ravelry. I will also be drawing for the quarterly chatter thread of the I Like Big Shawls and I Cannot Lie, which is being co-hosted with Vanessa from A Historian Knits. I will draw a pattern prize from the whip category. I do have the FO thread open for that too. We're starting to wind down on that. I don't know if I'm going to get my big shawl done or not, but I'm going to try. So anyway, also we have the Kit or Get Her Done, which is any kits, and this includes shawl kits, sock kits, cross stitch kits, basket making kits, jewelry making kits. They came in a kit form. In other words, you didn't have to put the pieces together. It was in a package together for you to just open and make. You can enter. And then we will have the Never Have I Ever Cal, or make along rather, which is going on, which is new skills, try something new, try to learn a new craft, try a new technique. So, you know, that's also in there. And then last but not least is the Farmer's Almanac, which is each a month I draw for a prize from that. So I will put up my October thread probably over the weekend so that you can get to looking. But please don't not enter because you don't think that I will count it, okay? I talked with Maria the other night for a while on chat, and she was like, well, I haven't entered because I wasn't sure. And I'm like, but aren't you making all these beautiful autumnal colored socks? Fall equinox, I mean, come on. I'm pretty open-minded about things. I just want people to make things and have a good time and participate. So, yeah. So, that's the ones we have currently going on. Before we go into the ones I want to talk about for next year, I want to put out a special appeal. My sweet friend, Miss Shirley, Shirley Knits 123, makes creatures for Cancer Kickin' Critters. Their website is cancerkickincritters.org. And I will insert a picture of their website because I've learned how to do that. I will insert a picture of their website either there or there. I don't know where it's going to show up. But anyway, so I will insert that. And then Cancer Kickin' Critters needs critters. They're running low. So I encourage you to make some critters to donate. In fact, our project at Adkins this year with the Gifted and Talented class is going to be called Conquering Cancer While Crafting Compassion. So we're going to talk about the science of cancer and cancer treatments, but we're also going to learn to crochet, and we're going to make some critters for Cancer Kickin' Critters, and we're going to make chemo caps. So the students are really excited about it. So if you want to make critters for Cancer Kickin' Critters, if you'll go to their website, there is a tab called How to Help, and you can get on there and find out how to donate. And I looked up just a few stats. They just need to be made with washable yarn. And so far, they have made 901 completed critters. And if I'm guessing, Shirley's probably made half of those. And 1,235 kits. You can also put together kits as well. It might be a fun knit night project for a knitting group to put together some kits. So if you want to know more about that, I am going to make a special point to put a link down below for the Cancer Kickin' Critters website. One thing that I also found out about, I'm really bad about not reading my work email sometimes if it comes from like admin and it's just like campus general announcements, but for some reason I opened this one and I found out that our library is hosting a warming tree. And so starting November 18th, there will be basically a coat tree in the library with hats and mittens and scarves and jackets and things on it for people who don't have warm clothing to wear. So they're taking donations of knitted and crocheted hats and gloves and yarn for people to make stuff. So I am going to make some hats. I've got a whole bunch of this bulky yarn which crochets up really fast, and this fell on the floor, so it's got a lot of thread bits on it, but this stuff crochets up really fast, so I think I can make some hats up fairly quickly. My goal is to try to make a couple a week to donate to that until November the 18th. So I encourage you to look for something like that in your local area too, because there's always people who need something warm to get by. Now, having said all that, let's talk just quickly. I'm kicking around my ideas for next year's make-alongs. I'm going to run Creature Feature again. I don't know if it will be a co-hosted situation or not, but regardless, I'm going to run it again. I'll probably have slightly different topics, but I've enjoyed learning to make amigurumis, and there's many more that I want to try to make, so I'm going to run that again. I'm also going to run a make-do make-along, which means the yarn that you use has to be something that you owned prior to January 1st of 2020. So you need to put it in your stash on Ravelry if you can, or somehow, you know, show when you got it. And you have to use patterns in your library that are in your library already. And that's going to kind of have to just be on the honor system. But it needs to be in your library prior to January 1 of 2020, and the yarn needs to be in your stash prior to January 1 of 2020. The idea is, you know, I've got tons of patterns and I kind of forget what I've got, and then I won't ever make them. So to go through those existing patterns, which I must have gotten because I liked them, and use them up. Also, I'm going to keep running Kit or Get Her Done because, as y'all know, I've got a problem with kits. And then I'm going to add two more. I'm going to add a science-themed make-along. So probably what I will do is each month just put up a little science sketch of a famous scientist, probably mostly women, for the year. And then any science-related anything that you want to make. So it can have scientific fabric, it can have name that's related to science, the pattern can be related to science, like there's the astronomer shawl, there's the geology shawl, there's the meteorology shawl, there's all kind of patterns that have scientific names. There's different companies that create colorways that are scientifically named. There's plenty of fabric that has a science theme, so it's going to be a make-along again. It's not going to be just knitting, it's going to be any craft, but it will be a science along. And so probably what I will do is similar format to the Farmer's Almanac. I'll run once a month pattern prize, and then at the end of the year have a giveaway of a physical prize for the winners. And then I'm going to host a needle along. I'm going to host a needle along where if the craft requires a needle as its primary tool, so needle felting, embroidery, cross stitch, punch needle, things like that. So anything that requires a needle as its primary tool to get done. And I don't mean like using a needle to weave in your ends, okay? But I guess knitting needles would be okay. Well, okay, we'll maybe just make it that way. Anything that requires a needle to get it done. I mean, I guess you could do amigurumis too if you wanted to. But the idea is I want to see people branching out and working on all these embroidery kits and cross-stitch kits, and the ones that I might have ordered from Joann's the other day that I needed, like I needed a hole in my head. But anyway, so I think those are going to be the ones I'm going to run next year just for funsies. So hopefully y'all will hang in there and bring a friend. You know how when back in the day the preacher at my mother's church would say, bring a friend next time. Bring a friend next year. Anyway, so that's all the things that I want to talk about from the make along section today. So we're going to move on now and talk about finished objects. I forgot to talk about this in my make along section. I want to host a holiday pattern swap. I think it will be easier to do than trying to send a physical package to people, and it will also be less expensive. So if you want to participate in the pattern swap, I'm going to open a thread on Ravelry. The way I'm going to do it is it needs to be a pattern that costs between $5 to $10. And you're going to make a wish list Okay, you're going to make a wish list if you haven't already on Ravelry. If you don't know how to do that, let me know and maybe somebody can walk you through. But you're going to make a wish list, and then when we do the swap, the person will buy you a pattern off your wish list. And like I said, we'll make it between $5 to $10, and you know, if the person wants to, if somebody wants to spend more, that's fine, but that's where I'm going to limit it. So I think that'll be better, because I don't want anybody to be disappointed by not getting a package, because I know there are people out there who've done their, you know, done their darndest to, you know, do a nice package for someone, and then maybe they don't get the best experience. So I think that this will work out better. So I'm going to put a thread up on Ravelry, and if you want to participate in the pattern swap, then just get on there and say, yes, count me in, or whatever. And then what we'll probably do is wait till December 1st and just do a swap then. Okay? Does that sound good? Yeah. All right. Well, finished objects are going to be short and sweet. I finished my Tempestry panel. I'll put the picture in where you can see it. And then they don't have the full display up yet, but I will show the full display of that when they get it completely finished. I got a preliminary picture today of part of them, and they've not been pinned yet. It's interesting to see different gauges. Mine, of course, was like, you could tell which one mine was. It had the loosest gauge of all of them. But at any rate, they're going to pin them all up, and that way people can go and look at them. It's part of Challenge Week, which is hosted by our Honors College. And this year's theme is Climate Change, Global Awareness, and Optimism. So we want to make people aware of the science of climate change, but also give them hope and optimism for the future, that we can make the world a better place. So I'm all about that. So that will be, it starts, the installation actually opens tomorrow night, Friday night, and then it'll run for a week. And they're having several speakers come in and talk, and there's just different initiatives that are going on around campus. I'll talk about the climate strike, which is what my students were involved in on Friday, and I took some video footage of that, so I'll talk about that in the science segment. But anyway, that's my only finished object for this week. I have two. Boy, I tried hard to get one of them finished, but I just didn't make it, so we'll get on to talking about works in progress. Okay. I had one thing that, boy, I was trying so hard to get it finished to show you guys. I had all these aspirations, and a picot bind off just takes longer than you think. But it sure does take the shawl to the next level. It really elevates the look of the shawl. So I'm halfway through the picot bind off. This is my Happy Halloween bag from Magpie Knits, who is Agatha out of Louisiana. And in this bag, I have last Halloween's Boo Knits Mystery Knit Along, the Gothic Angel. I will show you a picture of the shawl on the blocking mats to show you what it looks like. That's what it's going to end up looking like. This is Boo Knits. This was her Halloween Mystery Knit Along from last year. And I'll be honest, the thing that hooked me on it was that picture. I just thought that was so cool. I don't know what struck me about that picture. But anyway, y'all know my saga with this shawl, but it is almost done. I am knitting it out of Kimmery Knit Knacks, West Texas Sunset. I'm down to this part. It's a lace weight, heavily beaded shawl. And where am I at here? I don't want to mess anything up, because the last thing I want to do, because I'll tell you a sad story. I was running a lifeline and I wasn't paying attention, and I was pulling my needle out of the other end, and I pulled it out of about 50 stitches on this lacy, lacy, lacy shawl. But anyway, so I am binding off. Okay, I am this far on the picot bind off of the shawl. Where's it at? I'm this, whoops. Willie, I really don't want you up here right now, bud. See, that's what happens when you try to get in my lap. You knock stuff out of it. No, no, no. He's desperately trying to get up here. Okay. I am this far. There it goes. I'm wrestling with it. On the picot bind off. Now, to get those feathers, you pull down those points and pin them. So Stephanie from my local yarn shop, Knit Two Together, has ordered me some flexible blocking wires and a whole bunch more blocking pins, because she tells you how to block it to get those points to pull down. But you can see all those beads in there. So I'm about halfway done with the picot bind off. I've got about, there's 701 stitches in the bind off, in the row of the bind off, and then it's cast on 3, bind off 6. So the picots are 3-stitch picots. So you're really doing a lot more work than 700 stitches. But anyway, so it is almost done. It is a very lacy shawl. It'll show up more, I think, once I block it. And it is also very heavily beaded. You can see all the beadwork there. It was, once I got in the rhythm of it, and I've learned, this has taught me how to read my knitting. Because now I can tell when something is not quite right, and make adjustments as needed on the fly without getting frustrated as badly and quitting. But what you do, I don't know if I can hold this. Let me see. See if there's a way to hold this and show you. All right, here we go. So you take that and you pull down like that. And that makes those little feathery points. So you need a whole lot, a lot of blocking pins to do this. But anyway, that is the Bowie Knits Halloween make-along from last year, the Gothic Angel. Very beautiful. I'm glad now that I made it, because it has really upped my skill level as a knitter. And I went ahead and signed up for her summer make-along, although I did not start it yet, because I knew I don't need 2 of these things. When I get done with this lace weight thing, I'm going to make me some bulky weight hats for a little while, for a minute, until I kind of get my bearings back, and then I'll be ready to tackle another lace weight shawl. Anyway, so that was the thing I was trying so hard to finish. I finished the beading on Monday night, and I got about maybe a 1/5 of the bind off, and then the last 2 nights I've worked on it, but it just is slow going. Honey, you can't be up here while I'm doing this. I'm so sorry. Okay, my next work in progress is, where did it go? Oh, here it is. In my Whales bag by Republica Unicornia yarn is the Flax Light that I'm knitting as a gift for my friend Sasha for her son, soon on his way, Samuel. So the Flax Light. I had some appointments today, so it actually gave me the opportunity to bind off the body, and I got my needle set up to start the sleeve. So the last time I showed you this, it was up here by the little unicorn. It's a top-down sweater. It was up here by the little unicorn, so I've got the body finished and bound it off. So now I've picked up my sleeves and separated my yarn out on my DPNs to start my sleeve. Okay, but I knew that I needed to concentrate a little bit because of the decreases. This is being knit in Expression Fiber Arts. This colorway is called Lucky Ducklings. This is her Resilient Sock, which is 100% merino, superwash merino. So, yeah, so there we go. Those are some Lika. I like the Lika double points. I like how grippy they are on the yarn. I've got some DPNs that would just be sliding all over the place, but I like how much grip these have. So, and I dropped one of them, so I need to pick that up before Mr. Willie makes a toy out of it. Excuse me. Okay. Alright, so that is the Flax Light. Coming right along on that. That's the nice thing about a baby sweater. They don't take very long. And that is my first attempt at a sweater, so that is my never have I ever. Okay, come here. We'll try this and see if you can sit here. Okay, in my space bag that was a gift from Miss Mary, I have a pair of socks. These are I think these are the Cottywomple socks. Let me look. Let's see. No, these are the Fernway socks by Knitting Expat. This was part of her Wanderlust sock club from last year. I had joined that and gotten all the patterns, but I just kind of, you know, I know some people enjoy to knit socks. I'm not one of those people, but I'll do it. They're a good travel project. So I am knitting. I just started the patterning. You can see there, okay? I just started the patterning, and this is being knit in some Knit Picks. This is Knit Picks Felici, and the colorway is called Beyond the Wall. Okay, so anyway, this was also a gift. So Knit Picks Felici, and I just started the patterning. I do a 64 stitch, or I guess 32 per side, but a 64 stitch sock for myself, and with a German short row heel. If you've never knit a pair of socks before, I highly, highly recommend Knitting Expat patterns. They are extremely thorough, and there's directions for toe up and cuff down, and you know, they've got her detail. She's very good detail on how to do the heel turn if you like a German short row heel, which fits my foot fine. So I took these with me today while I was waiting on some appointments, and worked on those. Well, I finished binding off a little sweater, and then I worked on these because I wanted to pay attention to that little sweater for the arm decreases, or the sleeve decreases. Okay, last but not least, this is a little thrift store bag that I found. It's really a purse, but I like how open it is, and it's perfect for carrying around the larger yarns for amigurumis. So I am making Newton the Fennec Fox. Okay, I'm making Newton the Fennec Fox, and I'm just making him out of some scrap acrylic that I had. So I've got his head ready to go here. I am waiting on eyes. I'm waiting on, I ordered eyes from Suncatcher Eyes, which was recommended to me by Laura from Crocheting Whovian. So I ordered there. So I've got his head done, and I've got one ear, the outside part of the ear done, and I've got the second one started, and I've got the inside somewhere to the ear in here. So I don't know where it is, but it's just some scrap acrylic that I happen to have. He's going to be a little bit darker and kind of unusually colored, but I thought, what the heck? It's my critter. I can make him look however I want. So Newton the Fennec Fox, which will be one of my amigurumis. I really have enjoyed learning to make amigurumis. That's why I've decided to run Creature Feature again. So anyway, so those are my works in progress that I wanted to share with you this week. And so now we'll go on and talk about future crafting. Okay, so for future crafting, I thought what I would do is do a Let's Make Deborah Accountable for stuff that she needs to finish that she's had started for a while moment. The first thing is this felt applique stocking. Santa Claus is baking cookies here. I made a lot of progress on this, and then I just put it down and never picked it back up. So I want to get this finished because I think it would be an adorable entry for the fair. Plus I have 2 more stockings coming. I ordered a embroidery or a needlepoint stocking and a cross stitch stocking. I couldn't help myself. They were adorable. Someone had given me some Joann's gift cards for my birthday, and the other night I was just in that mood, and I got on there and they were having a sale, and I saw them and I went click click. Anyway, so this is a kit I've had for a long time, so I want to try to get this finished. He's got a little table in front of him, and then his chef's hat and stuff, and there's still some other work that needs to be done on here, but I'm about over halfway through, I think, with it. So I'd really like to get it done and get it put aside for the fair next year. Then I had this wall hanging, which I need to finish. All I need to do on this is sew it up and do a little bit of quilting. Press it real good, do a little bit of quilting and a little bit of embellishing, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it over and make a rod pocket for it. And what I would like to find is like a decorative wire hanger, which I've seen from time to time in like needlework stores and stuff, to put in here to hang it with. So what I'll probably do is, instead of sewing this down, put Velcro on it where I can put a hanger on it kind of after the fact. So anyway, so I want to get that done. I had these 2 angel pillows that I just never got around to stuffing. Okay, so I have these two. They're sewed up. They just need to be stuffed. I have this little holiday vest that needs to be finished. It needs, let's see, it needs to be sewed up on the inside. The lining needs to be sewn shut. And then I want to do some embellishing on it. Willie, you knocked all my stuff down, boy. Willie. He's being very needy today, and I don't really know why. Alright, you can get back up here. Okay. I have got every pair of socks I've ever made now has been washed and blocked. And I need to weave the ends in on them. 2 pairs have had the ends woven in because I put 1 pair in the fair last year and 1 pair in the fair this year. The rest of them need to have the ends woven in on them. So I need to sit down and do that. I have this piece of latch hook that I want to turn into a pillow. My only hold up on it is somehow I got this side really close to the edge. So I'm going to have to figure out how to sew this on. I think I've got it figured out and I've got the backing fabric already, but I want to make this into a pillow. I have the little devil costume for my friend Carol's grandbaby that I need to make, although she's too little to wear it this year. I have this piece of latch hook that I finished a couple of years ago that I also want to make into a pillow. I have this mini quilt that I want to get finished. It's called Strips That Sizzle. The pattern was called Strips That Sizzle, and it was a class that I took at the quilt shop in Norman, Oklahoma when I still lived there. So I want to get that finished and get that quilted. It's finished. I just need to put a border on it and then finish it. My quilt top actually did better than I thought it would. It got a second premium because it needed to be pressed better. I washed it before I took it up there. If I had not washed it, it had a little stain on it. And it was nice, and you know how when fabric is new and it's nice and fresh feeling. But then I washed it to get the stain out, and then I pressed it, but I didn't starch it. And so it wasn't pressed as good as they wanted. But they said very nice color choices, which made me very happy. I have this 4th of July wall hanging that I need to finish. This was also a class I took back when I lived in Oklahoma at the quilt store. And I think I might hand quilt this one because it's small enough that I can get it done. And I think it would really look good with some hand quilting. I have the log cabin lap quilt that you guys saw me working on earlier this year. That's not the full size of it. There's all the way. And see, there's didn't get it caught good right there, and I pulled it apart. So I've got to fix that. But anyway, I need to get that quilted as well. Okay, so those are things that I have on a pile right here by my sewing station. And I've told myself that I would like to get, you know, for every 2 I get done, I can start something new or buy something new. So in that genre. So we'll see. But that's my future crafting. I want to get this pile whittled down a little bit. Yeah. So anyway, so that we'll go on, and I've just got really just a couple of acquisitions to show you, and then we'll move on. All right. Okay, I really don't have but just 2 acquisitions this week. I got my last installment of the Celtic Year Shawl Club from Woolly Wonka Fiber Arts. This is the yarns for it. So this one is Barn Door, and then this one is Gray Goose. And I think those are going to look really pretty together. I don't have the shawl pattern printed out yet because I haven't really started any of these. So it looks like I'm going to have them all and start them for next year. So that was the last installment of the Woolly Wonka Shawl Club. It was really, I'm glad that I did it. I don't know that I'll do another one again for a while, because every 6 weeks I was getting more, and I just can't keep up with that kind of stuff. So, but I am glad I did this one. Maybe in 2 or 3 years when I get these all made up, I'll do another one. Then my friend Dana came up to me, and she is a crocheter, and she was showing me, she was learning to crochet with one of these double-ended hooks. She was doing a Tunisian crochet with a reversible pattern, where it almost looks like double knitting, where on one you use 2 colors, and on one side one color dominates, and on the other side the other color dominates. So I ordered myself some Tunisian hooks, and this is the reversible hook. I've got just the regular ones too that look like just a knitting needle with a hook in. And then I got this book. It's a catalog or an encyclopedia of stitches. So I've just been sitting down practicing some. I have some cotton yarn here, and I've just been practicing. So that's just a simple stitch, learning how to do the on and off business. So anyway, so that's just a simple stitch going across, and then the return stitch to bring everything back. So you can kind of see there what it looks like. Anyway, and then they've got the 2 color ones. So this was just, you know, different stitch patterns in here. And yeah, so, you know, we need another craft, right? Don't we? So I picked those things up. So those are the only 2 real acquisitions I'm going to show today. I've got some, like I said, I ordered a couple of things from Joann's that are on the way, but that's pretty much all I'm going to talk about today. So let's move on and talk about science. Okay, so we're back. As you know, we're on campus. We're about 2 weeks away from midterms. It's hard to believe that the semester is flying by so quickly. But things are going very well in my classes. I've got really good groups this semester. I am doing, as I had mentioned earlier, I am doing the Diversity, Excellence in Teaching track. So I have been doing a book group where we're reading the book Big Magic, and I have been attending workshops on, they've been focusing on the science of learning this year, which in a way helps students who were not prepared by their K-12 education to learn. The big thing has been focusing on teaching students how to study, and teaching them how to learn. And so we've been talking about things like retrieval. We're looking at like Bloom's taxonomy. So we've always kind of focused on the middle and upper tier of Bloom's taxonomy. And I'll put a picture of it in here. But we're focusing this year on the retrieval practice, and then a process called interleaving. Well, retrieval practice is where, and I've kind of always done this as a teacher. I have certainly done it the last 10 years, to keep students calling back to things that they've learned before and bringing them forward into what they're learning now. So to see that there is a continuum of learning. That's especially true in physics, where you build a foundation and everything builds off of that foundation. So I've always made the point of trying to remind them of how everything is connected and all of that. So the retrieval practice and then interleaving is where you study something for a little while, and then you go do something else for a little while. You maybe study a different topic, work on something different, give yourself a 10-minute break to play a video game, or to read a book, or to get up and walk around outside. And I've always done this. I do it with house cleaning. Where if I've got a daunting, like in here, if I've got a daunting task ahead of me and I'm like, oh, that's going to take me forever, I say, okay, I'm going to work on this for 30 minutes, and then I'm going to go do something else. And then I'll come back to it, and I'll work on it in like 30-minute increments, and it doesn't seem such like an overwhelming task then. Like my garage right now, as soon as it cools off, I've got to get in there and get it straightened up. And I look at it and I realize it's not going to be terrible to get done, but it is going to take a cooler day where I can open the doors and back my gator out of there and be able to do what I need to do in there. But anyway, so Bloom's Taxonomy, we're talking about that. And then also there are some diversity workshops as well that are going on. So I have to attend a certain number of these, and then I also have to have a consultation where they come to my classes and try to see the best way for me to incorporate some of the practices that I'm learning in these classes. So I'm excited about doing that. I'm also in this Women in Leadership thing. I'm on the sort of advisory committee for that, and I've kind of taken a backseat role there because what I realize is not that my voice doesn't matter, but there are other voices that need to be heard more than mine does. So I've just kind of backed off. But I have an idea for a workshop that I'm going to run by my friend that's in charge of the center. And I was thinking about it with the process of interleaving, because interleaving is exactly how I train horses. I work on them with something for a while, and then I go get their mind off of it and do something else. And I always try to end on a positive note. I always try to end on a good note with my horses. And then also the process of learning to work with the horse, because you're never going to be stronger than the horse. So you're going to have to get that horse's trust and respect. So it's like it's leadership and partnership. And a lot of high-powered, famous trainers talk about that, but those translate to things that are just useful life skills. And I was remembering a book that I read a long time ago. Oh, it came out, I don't even remember when it came out, but I was still in Oklahoma when I read it. It was 2001. It was called The Tao of Equus. And it was about horses as healing and teaching souls. They kind of they give us an insight into ourselves. And I was remembering this book, and I had picked up some other books to go with it that I never fully explored. And this was a gift, which is kind of along the same lines, The Tao of Horses. And then this one's called In Search of Your Image, which is the mental and spiritual aspects of horsemanship, which is again about being how to connect to horses as partners. So I picked this up a long time ago, and I just started reading in it, and then I moved home and I kind of put it to the side. So I spoke to Marianne at the barn about this too, and she said, "Why don't you bring some of them over here?" And I thought, well, I'm glad you said that, because that's what I was thinking, and I wasn't sure how to bring it up. So I don't know exactly how this would work or the logistics of it yet. It's just a very little germ in my mind that needs to germinate a little bit more. But anyway, then the other thing that went on was the climate strike, which I talked a little bit about, and I've got some footage recorded. Many of y'all have heard about it. It was a global effort last Friday to just raise awareness of the situation that we're in and try to say, this is still fixable if we will just act. And on one hand, I've been really sad to see how some people have responded, attacking, this young woman who's kind of the forefront of this, and making fun of people and saying ridiculous things about, well, these kids, blah, blah. It's not just kids out there telling y'all to do this. It's scientists. It's people who care about the planet. It should be every farmer, every outdoorsman and woman, every person that cares about our natural areas and this planet need to be out there singing this song so that people will listen. But instead, people seem to be bent on, I like doing this, la 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 la, and that makes me crazy. But anyway, on the flip side of that, I was really encouraged by how many people stood up in support of this issue. And I was so proud of our students, because there were a couple of people that came around and started heckling them with misinformation. And our students just stood up and said, that's not correct. Here's the facts. They didn't get mad. They didn't engage. They didn't lose their temper. They said, here are the facts. Here is the science. You don't have to believe it, but here is the science. And the science doesn't care if you believe it or not. It's still science. So I've got a few clips that I recorded that I'll insert so that you guys can see that. It was the Honors College, again, helped put this on along with several other. It was a nonpartisan event. There were several student government organizations that were involved. So I was really proud of how well spoken our students were.
I got all that. Ma'am, what's your air analysis on how shrimp are?
Hello.
Hey, Carol. So tell us about the climate strike.
Okay, so basically, all we're doing here is raising awareness against a growing problem of climate change. We have different things around. We've got a button making station over there.
Okay.
So if any of you guys want to go make buttons, we got a sign making station over there. So
Okay.
a lot of people have made signs and they're kind of standing around just kind of promoting the cause. We've got a board over there. If you see anything that UCA can be doing to make itself more eco-friendly or sustainable, if you have any suggestions, you can
Besides Fix Lewis.
So anything that you would like to see, you can put it on there.
Okay.
We've also got voter registration and then conservation RSO sign up.
Oh, cool. Very good.
So,
Well, thank
lots of
you.
stuff to do.
Look, I made a sign.
We don't have a lot of members right now.
Got a voter registration area and some topics, and they're holding their signs up over here. I had my class come over. But Dr. Adams making her button.
Making it, like giving me.
We have this black one. Yeah, that one.
Or you can make it.
Yeah, or you can make your own.
That's funny.
I want that one.
That's not gonna happen.
I know, I'm torn.
Awesome.
Oh, this one.
Yeah, I think I do too.
Okay, all the green ones? Okay.
This one, I'm afraid no one will know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I guess I could write it.
Can't wait. Change 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 can't wait.
So I had my class come down here because we're talking about the role of science in the public sphere and citizen science, the value of citizen science. And I wanted them just to see an example of that. So I asked them to just write me some thoughts about what they think the role of citizen science is and the role of science in public policy should be. Because, you know, science at its heart, the process of science should be apolitical. You shouldn't have a vested interest in an outcome. It should just be what the data says. But sometimes science has to be political because there are times when people try to misrepresent science. I mean, and that's not just recently, that's gone back from pretty much ever since there have been governing bodies. They have tried to skew scientific results to support their agenda in all directions. But science is what science is. And so, you know, sometimes the political role of scientists is just to speak up and say, no, that's not right. Quit misrepresenting the facts. And so, whatever your opinions may be, you know, always do good research. One of my students was just telling me about a website called Berkeley Earth, where they have some really good nonpartisan data that you can go look at. And so I'm going to go check that out. But anyway, so today's the global climate strike. It's happening all over the world. There's 3 sites here in Conway, and so I'm really proud of our Honors College for being one of those locations. So there is no Planet B. I want to talk about a couple of things today. The first one was the James Webb Space Telescope is in one piece now. Yay! The James Webb was sort of built in 2 parts. It was built as the telescope and then the propulsion system and heat shield were sort of built into two parts, and they were tested and all this stuff. But now they've been joined together as one unit, and so now that they're running tests on the single unit, the goal is still to launch in 2021. The James Webb is a joint project between NASA, the European Space Agency, and the Canadian Space Agency. It is a 6.5 meter telescope that mostly operates in the infrared, and the reason that they're using infrared is a really good tool to look into areas that we can't see in visible light. Interstellar dust and intergalactic dust is impossible to see through with visible light, but infrared actually does a pretty good job of looking into that. So they're looking at things like planets and young stars and early on in the history of the galaxy, galactic fragments and things like that. The Webb is kind of a unique scientific instrument in that it is a multiple segmented mirror. It's not, I'll put a picture of it right here. When you look at it, the mirror is segmented. So they built the mirror in pieces and then put it together. And you can do that with mirrors. You can't do that with lenses. But that way, the thing is easier to construct. And then if something fails with one mirror, the rest of it still works. Because this thing will be where we can't get to it. Once it's launched, it's out there. So it has to be right. So some of the things that they're going to do, like I said, is they're going to look at young stars and look for protoplanetary disks around their stars. They're going to look in the outer reaches of our solar system at those trans-Neptunian objects that are out there as part of the Kuiper Belt and the Oort cloud. They're going to look for what's called first light. You know, the point in the history of our universe where things cool down enough that matter can coagulate and create stars and form galaxy fragments and things like that. So there's a lot of really cool things that this is going to be able to do that we haven't been able to do yet. So I'm very excited. The way I think about it is, if you remember when Hubble went up, if you're old enough to remember that like I am, remember the huge leap forward we had in our understanding of the cosmos with Hubble. Well, the James Webb is going to do that again for us, I think. So I'm really excited to see that go up, and sooner is better than later, I think, because I'm really fearful if it goes over, because it was supposed to be launched in 2007 and you know, things don't, I mean, I was watching a program, well, I was watching Numbers, which I've talked about before, and they talk about engineers or the eternal optimists, because they always think that everything is 2 weeks out from being ready, even when there's no way. They just are eternal optimists. So I'm just glad that we're this close. So here's hoping that the tests all work out and they're able to launch in March of 2021. So we're a little over a year. We're a year and a half away from the Webb being launched. Okay, the other thing that I wanted to talk about was rabies. That's two very disparate topics, and I will tell you why. Well, first of all, my friend Ray up in Maine was talking about, she knew a man who was bitten by a rabid fox. I don't know how exactly that, or she knew someone that somehow they were bitten by this fox, and it tested positive for rabies, so he had to undergo the treatment for it. And she was looking at getting a rabies vaccine, because you can get rabies vaccines for people if you are in a situation where you very likely could be exposed to it. So for example, if you're traveling to the developing world, getting a rabies vaccine is not a bad idea, because the majority of the deaths that now occur from rabies happen in the developing world. Simply because in the U.S., because of the vaccination protocols for pets and for livestock, like I have my horses vaccinated for rabies, that has really cut down on the human-related deaths to rabies in the United States. But I wanted to talk a little bit about it because as I said, my friend Ray was talking about it, but I also tried to save a kitten over the weekend, and unfortunately it did not make it. And it was doing okay on Friday and Saturday, and then it kind of started going downhill Sunday, and it went significantly downhill on Monday. And after it died, I kind of woke up in the middle of the night, and now it didn't bite me and it didn't scratch me or anything, but rabies is transferred through saliva, and if you had cuts or nicks on your hand, which I always do, because hello farm, you know, I was concerned. So I messaged my vet and told her, and she said that's not the right timeline for rabies, and that's not the right symptoms, but it's smart that you checked just to be sure. So I decided I would do a little bit of research and just learn more about rabies. Rabies is a virus that's spread through the saliva. The virus primarily hangs out in the salivary glands of whatever is infected. So that's why it gets the name hydrophobia in some cases, because the mouth and throat tissue almost spasm when water comes into contact with them. Even though the infected individual may be starving for water, they can't drink, and so they are suffering. It's not that water makes them crazy; it's their thirst is making them crazy. They think that this is a way for the virus to protect itself, because if they were able to drink, then the virus would be diluted so much that it would be much more difficult to infect through bites. And viruses are trying to live too, I guess. So it's a virus that travels along the peripheral nerve system and infects the brain and causes brain swelling, and that's ultimately what causes death. It comes in two forms. The hydrophobia form is the one when you think about the most, which is also called furious rabies. And that's about 80% of cases that we see. The other 20% are what are called paralytic rabies, where there's just extreme lethargy and they can't move and they can't drink. And so that's much fewer cases, though. Any mammal technically can transmit the virus, although there are certain animals that don't transmit it as easily. For example, what are they called? I wrote it down here so I would remember. Maybe it's on the next page. No, let's see. I wrote down what it was called. Lagomorphs. Lagomorphs, rabbits, hares, small rodents, actually are very unlikely to be transmitters of the disease, which is good because you can't vaccinate rabbits or guinea pigs or anything, they say, for rabies. Now, the way you treat rabies is if you know the animal, if you've gotten bitten, then what you should do if you suspect the animal is infected is to go right away and you get a treatment near the bite site from an immunoglobulin, which kind of helps stop the spread of the virus. And then what you do, instead of the old treatment of the shots in the stomach, now you get 4 shots in your arm of rabies vaccine over a 14-day period. Rabies typically shows up 1 to 3 months after infection. The symptoms of it do, and once you become symptomatic, it's nearly always 100% fatal, or it's almost always 100% fatal. There have only been 17 people known to have survived rabies exposure, and they were treated. They believe they weren't given that much of the virus by whatever bit them or transferred it. There's one treatment that they use. There was a young woman called Grianaig Creations, and she got bitten by a bat. She was trying to get a bat out of somebody's house, and it bit her, and she became symptomatic with rabies. And they put her in they did what's called the Milwaukee Protocol, or sometimes called the Wisconsin Protocol, where they actually put her into a medically induced coma and gave her antiviral drugs, and she survived. But again, they don't believe she was given that much of the virus to begin with, so it just depends. So it causes approximately 17,000 deaths annually. Like I said, the majority of those are in developing countries. And, you know, I think they said because of the vaccine protocols, they've gotten the deaths in the U.S. down to like 1 or 2, possibly a year. Again, if you suspect you've been bitten, there was an interesting thing I read from the Mayo Clinic that said if you wake up and there's a bat in your room, you need to go be treated for rabies, because you can't assume that it didn't bite you while you were asleep. So, you know, good plan, I guess. If I woke up and there was a bat in my room, I'd be more worried. I mean, first going, how did it get in here without the dogs telling me about it? So anyway, there have been cases of human-to-human transmittance, but it's been from actually tissue and organ donation from infected individuals. There were people who, when someone died from the disease, they received their corneas, and they got, and then there were 7 cases of corneal transplant and 3 cases of organ transplant where the person got rabies from the transplanted material, which would really stink. But anyway, so I just wanted to talk a little bit about what rabies is, because there's a lot of mythology around it. You know, I always remember the movie Old Yeller. I cry every time. And then Where the Red Fern Grows, too. So, yeah. Anyway, so now you know. The more you know, right? Phew. But don't worry about Willie. Willie's had his rabies shot, haven't you, buddy? Yes, Willie's had his rabies shot, so we're all safe. Okay, so I'm going to move on now and talk about farm life. Okay, so farm life has been somewhat low-key and somewhat not, I guess you could say. You saw my little video of the fair, which I did very well. I was very pleased with that. I got my premium checks, so those have all gone in the bank to spend on different things. Arkansas Yarn Crawl is coming up, so I suspect some of it will go to that. I'm not going to be able to go to East Texas Fiber Festival this year because I've got a teacher training workshop that I'm facilitating that weekend. It's the only weekend we could fit it in around the UCA football schedule, so I'm not going to be able to go to that, but I am going to go to Arkansas Yarn Crawl. So a couple of things that I wanted to talk about that are not farm related, but today I went and had my yearly checkups on some things with preventative health care. To give y'all a little bit of an update to preface this, Marianne's daughter Amber had her surgery. She's the one that's my age. So I think she's a year or so younger than I am, but she's the one that had colon cancer. She has no family history whatsoever of it, but has colon cancer, and unfortunately it has infiltrated the lymph nodes. So she is going to have to go through chemotherapy. And at 50 years old, they recommend colonoscopies. And now they're starting to say as young as 40, depending on different factors. But so I've got a consult for one of those scheduled coming up. I had my visit to the gynecologist today, and everything was fine there. But he saw this patch that I have right here on my forehead and said, that looks a little sketchy. And I had already made an appointment with my GP to go have that looked at. But he said, no, I'm going to call my dermatologist for you and get you in today. So he did. He had his nurses call, and which I really appreciated him doing. They take very good care of me, because I walked out of there with a referral to his dermatologist. I had my mammogram scheduled, and I had my consult for the colonoscopy scheduled. So preventative health care, that old ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I'm a big believer in that. So I had to run some other errands in town, so I didn't have to wait but maybe 20 minutes to get into the dermatologist. And it was actually it was a nurse practitioner, and she was someone I went to high school with. She walked in and said, do you recognize me? And I'm like, yes, I do. So she looked at this and she said, no, that is, and I can't call the name to mind, but it's basically a result of age. So she looked at all over my torso and my face and my neck and everything, and I don't have anything suspicious looking. She said, you can put mineral oil on that and it will eventually flake off. And I've got the same thing happening right here on the side of my nose. So, but it's just better to be safe than sorry. I try to wear sunscreen every time I go outside. Being on the farm, you're outside in the sun a lot. Teaching writing lessons, I'm outside sometimes. I try to wear sunscreen. I try to wear a hat when I'm outside working in the garden. But in my younger days, I was not so wise. And so, better safe than sorry, right? Better safe than sorry. So that's my plug for preventative health care. The more you know. Anyway, Miss Betsy's granddaughter actually is doing well. The kind of tumor she had is very rare, and it is white blood cell related. And some people say it's more like a cancer, and some people say it's more like a virus. But it turns out that she was put into contact with the foremost expert in the nation on it out of Houston, and he did a consult. And it turns out the doctor that they've been working with in Kansas City is one of his former students. So they work closely together, and so now they've got a very good protocol in line for her. She is going to have the chemo. It starts next week, so she'll have to do like every week for 6 weeks, and then it'll be every 3 weeks, and then it'll be, I don't know what it'll be after that, but as a prevention, just because it was so close to the brain being in the tear duct, they don't want to mess around with that. But she is doing well, and Miss Betsy appreciated all the well wishes from everybody that sent them, and so did Miss Marianne. So, so we are working on winding down for the year. I picked muscadines this week off my vines, and I've got muscadine jelly I need to finish. My neighbors gave me a nice bag of tomatillos, so I made salsa verde. I made apple butter from apples from my own trees this year, so that was very exciting. And then I gave the man, one of the men who gives me hay or sells me hay, his mother has an apple tree, but it didn't bear this year, so I gave him some apples for her. This past Sunday was the day that I had to take 2 steers to the processor, and we've talked about this before. That's never an easy thing for me to do, but it is part of what I do, and it is a sacred duty, and it's hard, but, you know, it's part of what I do, and if I'm going to eat meat, then I need to be that close to it. I have to make that conscious decision, because if I'm going to, I have to be aware, okay? So, I took them on Sunday, and my people that are purchasing, I'm keeping some for myself, and then the people that are purchasing, I've got those lined out. Been riding flame quite a bit. We got some nice canter work done finally yesterday. I finally got over my fear of actually using my foot to cue her. I don't kick her, but I squeeze her to try to get her to canter. Because a few years ago, well, 7 years ago now, she bucked me off because I had on a pair of dressage spurs. Now, dressage spurs are balls. They're not pointed. But I had on a pair of dressage spurs, and I bumped her, and she didn't like it. And so I bumped her again, and she just yard darted me, basically. Her hiney went straight up in the air, and I went down on the ground head first. Luckily, I had on a helmet. And ever since then, that's been in my mind. So I've been kind of not wanting to use my heel on her, but I finally have realized that she's past that. I'm past that. We're all good. So I got some nice canter, and it was the most joyful feeling I've ever felt in my life. It was just wonderful. I have not mowed yet. I got my tractor out and got it running. It has just been so humid and hot here in the afternoons, except for we've had a couple of nice fall days, but fall really hasn't settled in here yet. I want to get that started though, and try to get some stuff mowed down as we go into winter. The hay situation is looking pretty good, thankfully, so I think we're going to be good there. We had gotten a little bit dry, but in the last 3 days we've had 6 inches of rain. So we're okay again now. My poor birds out in the pen are in the mud, and they don't like that very much, but that's okay. We'll get them lined out here. It'll dry out in a day or two. I mentioned about the little kitten. I'm pretty sure it was one of my barn cat kittens. It was old enough that it was eating food, but somehow it had ended up in the horse pasture. And I don't know if it was lost or scared or hurt, but I heard it crying, and I went up there and got it. It was very hungry and thirsty, and it also had fly strike, and I'm not going to go into the gory details of that, but I got it over that, and it was healing up. But I think it probably had that respiratory condition that kittens get sometimes, where they have the gummy eyes and stuff, and that can be fatal. So I tried, and it ate, and then it just stopped eating, and I knew when it stopped eating that we were in trouble. So at least I tried, and it was warm and in a comfy bed, and it had food and water, so it didn't die out in the pasture. I suppose that's how you have to just try to make yourself feel better, I guess. So that's pretty much what's going on here. I've got to get the garden organized and cleaned up a little bit. I'm going to order me some fruit trees, I think, next month, because I want to try to plant a mulberry, and when the utility company came and sprayed, they oversprayed, and they sprayed on one of my pear trees, and it died. And I never really followed up with it because I was so mad. I just didn't do anything. So I've got to get it, but I needed to get a different variety anyway to cross-pollinate. I would like to get a tame persimmon and some pawpaws. But we'll see. We'll see what my budget allows. But I want to at least get another pear tree, a variety of pear, and maybe a plum tree also would be nice. But anyway, so that's my goal for next month, is to maybe try to order some trees and put in some lettuce and cabbage and some fall vegetables. I took my sweet potatoes that I grew and I baked them, and I took all the flesh that I baked and bagged it up to make sweet potato pie this winter, or sweet potato casserole or something this winter. I had about 12 or 14 pretty big sweet potatoes, so I made like 8 bags of Ziploc bags of sweet potato to put in the freezer, which was kind of nice. I was thinking about fall, and the fall equinox, of course, you know, was Monday, and the muscadines really remind me of fall. The smell of muscadines is unlike the smell of grapes. It's not the same. If you've never smelled muscadines, you've really missed out. The smell of muscadines, the smell of ripe figs, you know, the greens are tired, as I put it. The leaves are starting to get crunchy and crispy and starting to have just a little bit of color to them. The horses are getting their winter coats. The cattle are getting their winter coats. Animals are starting to change their behavior and start to get ready for winter. You know, it's that every now and then there'll be a smell. You can smell a wood fire where somebody's got a fire burning in their fireplace. It's not really been cool enough for that here yet, but you know, that's another smell that I think of when I think of fall. We start thinking about deer hunting season. I don't know if I'm going to hunt this year. This is the first year I've even thought about it in a couple of years, so we'll see. I do need to get my freezer stocked back up, you know, before winter, so we'll see. Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at. I hope you guys are doing well at your places. So that's my fall farm report, I guess. So anyway, so now we'll move on and do some final thoughts. Okay, I was thinking about, there's a quote by Churchill that goes along the lines of, you know, if you've never been disliked, you've never stood up for anything. And I was thinking about, you know, not everybody's going to be your friend. And some people have decided, they may decide on spec that they don't like you. They may decide that they don't like you because they think they know your story and they really don't, without even trying to get to know you. And then sometimes they're just people whose personalities who just clash. One of the things that I was reading online is from a website called Tiny Buddha. And there was a list of things, you know, it's one of those 10 things or whatever, but I thought there was some good ideas about this. It's about, I liked what it said about, when we release our stress over other people's opinions, it frees us up to do these things. It allows you to be your true self. It gives you the power to say no. You are more comfortable exploring your feelings. Your candor can help other people. You can freely express your thoughts. It prepares you for greater success. It teaches you to offer kindness and compassion without expectation. Because it says, I like what this one said underneath it. It said, it's not difficult to offer compassion to someone who treats you with respect and kindness. What's more valuable for your personal development and to humanity as a whole is the ability to do what's right because it's right, not because you get something in return. You can inspire other people, you can use your time wisely, and you can choose to smile anyway. I really liked those tips. And so along that line, I found a poem that was very illustrative of this point by a poet called Jessica Simon. She is a riot poet and performer who was born in Lebanon. And she has written several things, but one of the well-known books is Child of the Moon. And it's about healing from complex trauma, especially early trauma. She is a psychotherapist, and she wrote a really nice poem that I wanted to share with you. It is called, where did it go? There it is. It's called Not Everyone Will Like You. One day you find a yellow orchid in your room, but you don't like orchids. A week later the orchid starts flourishing, but you still don't like orchids. 2 weeks later you notice a golden reflection on its surface. You start disliking the orchid a little less. A month later you bow to the orchid. For despite your dislike, the orchid kept flourishing. And just like the orchid, not everyone is going to like you. But as you continue flourishing, many will admire you. I thought that was a good thought. You know, especially as young women, we always want people to like us, I think. We always want to have friends and not be lonely. And at what cost? At what cost does that come? So, be the orchid. Flourish anyway. So, that's where I'm going to leave you guys. I hope you're all flourishing in your lives and in your crafting. And I look forward to hearing from you guys and seeing what you put in the different topics. Don't forget to sign up for the pattern swap and the giveaways that are in my Ravelry group if you want to do that. And I always look forward to your comments, and I appreciate hearing from you on Instagram and all the different places. And Willie is half asleep. Are you sleepy? You gonna say goodbye to everybody? Oh, Willie's gonna say goodbye. So until we see y'all again, what are we gonna do, Willie? Y'all be good to each other and take care of each other. And what, Willie? Peace out, y'all. Bye.